This is the smoking gun. This is the document that turns a presidency into a crime scene. If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you lost money this week. Maybe a little, maybe everything. You saw the headlines, you saw the tweets, you watched the President of the United States stand on a global stage in Davos and announce, using the full authority of his office, that America had secured exclusive sovereign rights to Greenland's mineral wealth. Then you watched the ticker. Greenland Resources Corp, GRC, went from $2 to $200 in just 48 hours. You watched the MAGA base, institutional investors, even pension funds rush billions of dollars into what they were told was the deal of the century. And then you watched it collapse to zero. As of 6 o'clock a.m. This morning, Monday, January 26, 2026, we now know exactly why. A massive data dump known as the Arctic Papers has just been released onto the dark web by the activist collective called the Glass House. It contains over 50,000 internal emails, encrypted signal chats, and bank transfer records from inside the Trump White House. And what they reveal isn't confusion, it isn't aggressive diplomacy, it's a premeditated, carefully engineered financial crime. The documents show there was never a deal. The Danish government never agreed to sell anything. The local parliament in Nuuk never approved a lease. The so-called treaty Trump waved around at rallies was nothing more than a non-binding cultural exchange memo, knowingly mistranslated and deliberately presented as a property deed. Why? Because they needed cash. The leak draws a straight line between the Greenland stock pump and the Japanese bond crash. It shows senior administration insiders, working alongside a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands, were staring down massive margin calls scheduled for Monday. They needed liquidity. They needed a bubble, so they created one. Tonight, we're going to walk you through the anatomy of what may be the largest pump and dump scheme ever executed. We'll name the shell companies, we'll read the emails where they joke about selling ice to the Eskimos, and we'll explain why the SEC, the DOJ, and the Southern District of New York are now racing each other to indict the president's inner circle first. The Greenland deal wasn't statecraft, it was a rug pull, and you were the target. To understand how this worked, you have to start with the setup. The brilliance, if you want to call it that, was that the scam leaned on a real truth. Greenland is valuable. It holds massive reserves of rare earth elements, neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, the vitamins of the modern economy. You can't build fighter jets, electric vehicle batteries, or smartphones without them. Right now, China controls roughly 90% of the global supply. For years, the U.S. security establishment has genuinely wanted to reduce that dependence. The Pentagon does want access to Greenland. Trump's team took that legitimate strategic concern and weaponized it for profit. Here's the timeline. January 10th. The first whispers leak. Sources tell Fox Business a historic agreement is close. GRC stock, a dead penny stock with no employees and a single expired mining permit, jumps from $2 to $5. January 15th. The president tweets, "Greenland is coming home. Huge news soon. China is out." The stock hits 25. Retail investors flood in. MAGA forums explode. They start calling it the Louisiana Purchase 2.0. January 20th. Inauguration anniversary. The press secretary steps to the podium holding a thick, leather-bound document. She says the president has signed a framework for resource sovereignty. She doesn't release the text. She just holds it up. The stock hits 80. January 22nd. Davos. This is the peak. Trump stands before the world and says, "We have total control." He explicitly names Greenland Resources Corp as the primary development partner. That's the illegal moment. A sitting president publicly pumping a specific penny stock. GRC hits $200. For a brief moment, this empty shell company is valued higher than Ford Motor Company. So what was actually in that leather binder? According to the Arctic Papers, it was a draft copy of a 2019 climate study. And what did Denmark actually sign? A Memorandum of Understanding on Arctic Research and Education, student exchanges, a joint polar bear study. That's it. No mining rights, no sovereignty transfer, no exclusion of China. The entire story was designed to survive for exactly 1 week, just long enough for insiders to sell at the top. And sell they did. Now let's get into the documents, the evidence that will send people to prison. Inside the leak is a folder labeled Project Iceberg. That appears to be the internal code name. Email 1, dated January 5th, 2026, from Advisor A, name redacted for platform policy, but think son-in-law archetype, to a senior hedge fund manager at Polaris Capital. Subject: the liquidity problem. Quote, "We are underwater on the yen trade. The Japan situation is going to blow up next week. We need a bridge. How fast can we move the GRC vehicle?" The reply: "The vehicle is ready. We control 85% of the float through offshore shells, but we need a catalyst. We need volume. Can the big guy drop the news before the Japan margin calls hit on Tuesday?" Email 2, dated January 12, 2026, from the White House Communications Director to Advisor A. Subject line: the map text. The Danes are panicking. They say they haven't agreed to anything. The Prime Minister is refusing to take the call. The reply from Advisor A is blunt. It doesn't matter what they say. We just need the headline to hold for 72 hours. Run the map graphic with the US flag over nuke. Fox will pick it up. By the time the Danes issue a denial, we'll be out. Read that again. That sentence is the proof of intent to defraud. They knew it was fake. They knew the correction was coming. They only needed a 3-day window to dump their shares onto the American public. Now let's talk about the Algorithm 45 chat logs. The leak also includes transcripts from an encrypted group chat used by the War Room. In these messages, they openly discuss deploying bot farms to pump the stock on Reddit and X. User MAGA Whale writes, "Get the meme team on GRC. Say it's the crypto killer. Say it's backed by gold." User West Wing, actual replies, "Done. The boss is going to mention it in the Soto preview." This is market manipulation at an industrial scale, coordinated directly from the executive branch of the US government. So who made the money? And where did it go? The Glass House didn't just leak emails. They released blockchain transaction IDs and Swift wire records. Let's start with the company itself. Greenland Resources Corp, GRC, was incorporated in Delaware in 2024. Its listed headquarters? A P.O. box in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Its CEO? A man named Lars Jensen. Reporters tracked Lars Jensen down this morning. He's a ski instructor in Aspen. He previously worked as a caddy for a Trump family member. He was a straw man. The real ownership, the cap table, was buried behind a maze of shell companies. Patriot Holdings LLC in the Cayman Islands, Arctic Strategy Fund in Cyprus, Freedom Minerals Ltd in Bermuda. The leak untangles this web. All roads lead back to a trust managed by the family office of a senior White House advisor. And most explosively, one account traces back to a blind trust connected to the president himself. Now the cash out. On Thursday, January 22nd, the day of the Davos speech, the day GRC hit $200, those 3 LLCs dumped $4.2 billion worth of stock. They sold into the rally, they sold to pension funds, they sold to retail investors, they sold to MAGA moms and dads who thought they were buying a piece of American greatness. Now comes the most important question. Why $4 billion right then? The answer is Japan. The leak shows that this same family office was massively leveraged in the yen carry trade. When the Bank of Japan raised rates on Monday, they were hit with a margin call of roughly $3.5 billion. If they didn't pay, they were finished. Insolvent. Empire over. So they used the Greenland lie to steal from the American public and funnel that money straight to Japanese banks to save themselves. Middle-class wealth, transferred overseas, to cover elite gambling losses. It's a Ponzi scheme layered on top of a geopolitical crisis. Now, while the financial crime is complicated, the diplomatic crime is very simple. We've now heard directly from Denmark, and honestly, they're done being polite. The Danish foreign minister held a press conference just an hour ago. He held up the very document Trump claimed was a deed. This, he said, visibly shaking with anger, is a standard agreement to share weather data. It is 3 pages long. It does not mention mining. It does not mention sovereignty. It does not mention a lease. Then he went further. The President of the United States looked the world in the eye and lied about the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark. He revealed that during the so-called negotiations, Trump didn't send diplomats. He sent real estate lawyers. They came into my office, the minister said, laid a map on the table, pointed to the Thule Air Base, and said, "We're expanding this to the coast. Sign here, or we tariff your Lego exports." It wasn't a deal. It was a shakedown. And when Denmark refused, Trump simply pretended they agreed. This explains the walkout at Davos. European leaders knew. They knew he was lying. They walked out because they refused to be used as props in a stock market scam. They weren't weak, as Trump claimed. They were the only ones telling the truth. That infamous tweet where Trump called them vassals? That wasn't strength. That was panic. He was trying to bully them into silence, pay up or shut up, because he was terrified they'd expose the lie before the trade settled. Now the legal machinery is moving, and it's moving fast. At 9:30 this morning, the SEC halted trading in GRC. The stock is frozen at 42 cents. The SEC's enforcement division has launched a formal investigation into market manipulation and insider trading tied to Arctic securities. The SEC is usually slow, but this evidence is public. Rule 10b-5 makes it illegal to make false statements that move a stock. The president made false statements. The stock exploded. His trust sold. That's a textbook case. Now the DOJ. This part is trickier. Can you indict a sitting president for securities fraud? Office of Legal Counsel memos say no, but you can indict his advisors. You can indict his son-in-law. You can indict the ski instructor CEO. And we are hearing that the Southern District of New York, the same prosecutors who've pursued Trump for decades, are already drafting subpoenas. They are going to flip the ski instructor. Once he talks, the conspiracy reaches straight into the Oval Office. And this is where the wire fraud statute comes in. Because the emails and the money crossed state lines and international borders, this case falls squarely under federal wire fraud laws. Every email, every wire transfer is its own count. We're talking about potential sentences that add up to hundreds of years in prison for the people involved. And that's before we even get to the civil side. By Monday, every major trial lawyer in America will be filing class action lawsuits against the Trump Organization on behalf of the investors who were wiped out. They will demand discovery. They will get the emails. The civil courts may bankrupt Trump long before the criminal courts even get rolling. This is the political kill shot. Normally, scandals don't hurt Trump because his base believes the system is rigged against him. But this time, he rigged the system against them. The victims of the Greenland scam aren't coastal elites or hedge fund snobs. They are the true believers. They are the people who watch ON. They are the people who follow the Q-adjacent influencers who pushed this stock. They put their savings into GRC because they trusted Trump. And Trump used them as exit liquidity. We are already seeing TikTok videos of men in MAGA hats crying. I put my kid's college fund into GRC because he said it was a sure thing. It's gone. He stole it. He sold us out to pay Japanese banks. That breaks the bond. You might survive almost anything as a populist leader, but you cannot steal directly from your own supporters. That is the one unforgivable sin. The Make America Go Away protests are growing, and now they're being joined by the scammed investor brigade. These people aren't chanting resist, they're chanting refund. There's another layer here, crypto. The leak shows that part of the pump involved a new cryptocurrency called Arctic Coin. It was marketed as being backed by Greenland's mineral rights. In reality, Arctic Coin was minted by the same Bermuda shell company. They sold roughly $500 million worth of tokens to crypto investors. Those tokens are now worthless. The wallet data shows that the proceeds from the crypto sales were funneled directly into a super PAC tied to the 2026 midterms. This is a campaign finance violation so extreme it makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. They laundered fraud money straight into political cash. And that explains something important. This is why Fox News turned. Rupert Murdoch knew. His financial analysts saw the GRC pump. They saw the volume. They knew it was fake. Murdoch realized that if Fox continued promoting this stock and it collapsed, the network could be sued for aiding and abetting securities fraud. So they cut the feed. They blacked Trump out. They weren't being woke. They were protecting their balance sheet. Fox saved itself by sacrificing Trump. And now they're running the Arctic Papers story nonstop, positioning themselves as truth tellers who tried to warn their audience. What we're watching is the collapse of the business genius myth. For decades, Trump sold himself as a master dealmaker. The Greenland hoax exposes the truth. He didn't make a deal. He fabricated one to pump a stock. That's not capitalism. That's theft. The Greenland scam will sit in history alongside the South Sea bubble and Enron. But the damage here goes beyond money. It's national. He reduced the presidency to a boiler room operation. He turned the State Department into a marketing arm for a penny stock. As markets close today, the money is gone, the trust is gone, and the presidency is effectively over. Donald Trump is no longer the leader of the free world. He is target number one for the SEC. Subscribe. We're tracking the indictments. The Glass House says more files are coming. They say the next drop involves the Election Integrity Commission. If you think the Greenland scam was bad, wait until you see the voting machine emails. Now let's break down how they hid ownership. This is the technical part the DOJ will obsess over. They used what's called a Russian doll LLC structure. Company A in Wyoming is owned by Company B in Delaware. Company B is owned by Company C in the Cayman Islands. Company C is owned by a trust in the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands are famous for secrecy, but the leak includes beneficial ownership forms from a Cayman bank. Those forms require the true owner's name under anti-money laundering rules. On the Patriot Holdings LLC form, the signature isn't from a lawyer. It's a familiar black Sharpie scrawl. That signature is the nail in the coffin. It proves knowledge. It proves control. The leak also includes the source code for the bot network used to hype the stock. These bots scraped Greenland-related headlines and reposted them with bullish hashtags like Greenland Gold and Trump Trade. They used AI to generate fake due diligence reports claiming GRC had discovered trillions in gold. Those reports were posted on Seeking Alpha and Reddit. This is automated securities fraud, and it drags the tech platforms into the blast radius. Why didn't X stop it? Why didn't Reddit stop it? This will trigger a massive regulatory crackdown on social media-driven finance. Notice who is silent today. Jim Jordan, silent. Marjorie Taylor Greene, silent. Even they know you don't defend a Ponzi scheme. They're watching the base revolt. They understand that defending GRC means turning against their own voters who lost everything. The Greenland hoax did what the Access Hollywood tape couldn't. What January 6th couldn't. It broke the spell, because it emptied the wallet. The Greenland deal was the perfect Trump scam, massive, flashy, and completely hollow. But this time, he scammed the wrong people. He scammed the world. And he scammed his own supporters. And there is no bankruptcy court on earth that can discharge that debt.